Look, what I know in my gut and what I see happening again and again is that the people that manifest self-discipline do best. However, as soon as I hear the word discipline, another side of me screams in my head. What about freedom? What about creativity? What about moving freely and chasing opportunities as they present themselves? Doesn't that, on some level, come into contradiction with the idea of discipline? And that's just me in my head, but every time I mention this idea of discipline in my training and consultancy work, I have to be really careful to emphasize that it's not about process and procedure or some kind of absurd attention to detail that doesn't matter, but something else entirely. But what is that something else? What do I mean when I say discipline? This is that moment when I'm going to make up a word, and the word is going to be Flexipine. And the best way to explain it is going to be through a story. Let's say the thing you have to do is to go mountain hiking and camping overnight with a couple of your friends. And it's a difficult hike up the snowy mountain in the winter, freezing temperatures, so it requires preparation and it requires work. So, not even thinking about what kind of clothes you need to have on you in those kind of conditions and just throwing whatever on you without a second thought is lack of discipline, because discipline is about preparation as well. Being late at the meeting point with no good reason is also lack of discipline. Being tired 30 minutes into the 6-hour hike and starting whining is again lack of discipline, both in preparation for the task at hand and in your ability to take some hurt. Not even thinking that you like some coffee in the morning, the day after, and just casually asking around your friends if they have some extra coffee is again lack of discipline. Now, I'm not saying your friends can share a cup. It's not about that. It's about you making your bed and lying in it with the good and the bad, because that's discipline. Obviously, you can ask for help if you need it, if you're hurt and something unexpected happens, but unexpected and exceptional situations are one thing, just generally being unprepared for anything is something else entirely. It's a lack of discipline. In a team, our lack of discipline doesn't only hurt us, it hurts the team. What if I'm so badly prepared that I get really cold and it turns into an emergency situation up there on the mountain in the winter? Is that going to affect only me? No, it's going to impact the entire team because I've just ruined everyone's trip. Obviously, my friends are not going to leave me there, but if that was a problem of my own doing through my carelessness and my lack of discipline, the next time they go up the mountain, they may not invite me again, and I will deserve it. That's the good kind of discipline that I mean. But there's also bad discipline, or more precisely, a bad understanding of what discipline is. Obsession with non-essential detail is one way to have bad discipline. Refusing to wear anything but a particular kind of hiking boots when a reasonable alternative is available is an example of bad discipline. Forced discipline, a micromanagement kind of discipline. Insisting of rules that make sense on paper but don't translate into reality is another kind of bad discipline. Wanting the group to hike in intervals of 25 minutes followed by 5 minutes rest, waiting, clock in hand as the seconds tick, is a bad kind of discipline. Now I get what you're trying to do. You know it's a long hike. We need to be there before the end of the day. So we need to keep going and not stop for selfies at every opportunity. But there's better ways to go about that without demotivating anyone and being a pain in people's neck. After all, the ultimate objective is to have some fun in nature. And you're taking that away by insisting on this kind of micromanagement, a forced kind of discipline. Rather, lead by example and keep a steady pace yourself, and people are going to follow you. Forced, exaggerated, micromanagement kind of discipline, it's bad discipline, and it happens when you lose sight of the ultimate objective. What are we trying to do here? And instead you get stuck on the minute process, regulations and procedure, forgetting about the big picture. By focusing too much on these non-essential details, you're sending the wrong message to your team because you're telling them that that's what you care about above everything else. Flexibility is key and it complements discipline perfectly. There is no contradiction between discipline and flexibility. They go hand in hand perfectly. If the weather gets to be really bad, maybe it's time to turn back. That's a good kind of flexibility. Keeping a good pace and not stopping all the time for no good reason is a good kind of discipline. But if you happen to see the most wonderful rainbow in the most wonderful valley just laying there in front of you, take a break, take a minute, take a couple of pictures. That's what you're there for. You can decide midway not to go on that summit, but instead change plans and go to that summit. If you know what you're doing, do it. You can take on as much risk and uncertainty as you like, as long as you know that you're taking on risk. Each person's level is gonna differ, but the idea is that to be aware of what you're doing. You're changing the plans, you're stepping into a new situation, and you do that intentionally. You're not just stumbling upon it. That's what I mean by Flexipine. On one hand, you have the discipline to prepare for what's ahead, to own the consequences of your decisions, but you also have the flexibility to keep your eye on the big picture, to not get stuck in irrelevant details, and while you're at it, to enjoy the journey. Flexipine is an attitude that I recommend virtually to anyone in any situation. I cannot think of any drawbacks to this approach.